Hello, good morning. Rebecca here. Welcome back to my aquarium. For those of you who are hearing my voice for the first time, my name is Rebecca Trotter. I am a writer and an activist, and I am co-founder of an organization called Food for Thought Afghanistan. And I wanted to talk with you guys a bit today about some advice I have for when your life has just absolutely gone into the shitter. Like everything's blown up, everything's destroyed, everything is lost, everything you've worked for is gone, and you're just left looking for bare survival. And I wanted to talk about this in the context of the Afghan activists that I have been working with and talking to, because that's very much what they're dealing with. And while I would never have chosen the path that I took, and I'm still pretty not happy about it, I'm still in process working through all of that. It has, like, my experience has enough corollary that I think, I have found that things that worked for me, the feedback I'm getting is like, that's helpful. That's a good idea. So I'm going to kind of share some advice for what to do when your life has gone to hell. For those of you who need some background, I am, of course, an American. I live in the great state of Minnesota. And I was married for 22 years, had 5 kids. And in August of 2020, as the Taliban was taking over Kabul, I was in Portland working on a project serving unhoused people on the streets of Portland during the COVID lockdowns and the protests that happened that year. And, it was this whole project we were working on. I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks and wound up unable to return home for safety reasons. I wasn't safe to go home. And somehow, very, very quickly, I had my children. It just was a disaster. I have complex PTSD. Finding that I couldn't get home, feeling that my children weren't safe, and I'm like stuck. I have a bag of clothing and a laptop computer, right? In summer clothing, no less. Like, I don't even have a coat to go back to Minnesota. I have no couches to sleep on. It was just a disaster. My mental health was such that, when it first started, it was very difficult to even try and explain to people what was happening in a way that made any sense, because I was in a trauma state. My brain is not putting things together in a normal way. And I was having this experience where, like, I would call in, I would talk to someone and they would say, I think I talked to you last week. And I'm like, yeah, probably. Like, I couldn't keep track of things. It was difficult to read paperwork. There was a point at which I had lost all track of time. Like, honestly, like, I could look outside and see if it was morning or night. I had no idea how much time was passing. I was not engaging normally with the world around me. It was very dramatic. I have complex PTSD. I have developmental trauma from before, pre-verbal developmental trauma. So if you push me into a deep enough trauma state, you're kicking me back into essentially the point at which that trauma started, which was when I was tiny, like, it was bad. It was really bad. And, I had to find my way forward. While in that state, unable to return home with very little access to resources. I hadn't earned income essentially in 22 years when this happened. So it wasn't like I had a job, an income that I could be like, hold on, let me get myself together. No, I had nothing. I didn't have a car. My ex wouldn't give me my stuff back when I came back. Like he was so extra. He was just drunk on his petty power. Like any cruelty, the system turned against me. Like technically I am not supposed to go within a couple of blocks of the house I shared with my family. For reasons that I don't know. There were some bizarre accusations made about me, like moving sticks around and leaving unwrapped gum in the mailbox. And it was something very weird. And it just, like, the man had my children convinced I was going to kill them, or that I had tried to kill him. And of course, what was so funny is that I could have, given that I was on the street with criminals, I literally could have done that. But I was so careful that I didn't even use his name for fear that somebody would take it upon themselves to do something to him, So, and by the way, his name is Six Toes. Like, obviously that's not the name his mom gave him, but that's what he's called, is Six Toes Trotter. Just anyways. So yeah, it was bad. It was really about as bad as it could be. Right. And so I have obviously, the situation that Afghan people are dealing with, is even more dramatic than that. The people that I'm working with are people who have spent time in Taliban custody. Like, they have really many of them are dealing with physical injuries as well as trauma. But the world doesn't stop. And the world doesn't take care of you. And the world doesn't show up and say, oh my goodness, what happened to you? Did somebody hurt you? Here, let me help. Like when you were little and somebody was horrible to you. The world doesn't do that. I'd like to live in a world that does that. I'm working to make this a world where that happens more often. But the reality is that it doesn't work like that. And so if you're going to survive, much less get to a point of being able to thrive, you're going to have to be strategic. You're going to have to, put some principles in place that you can follow regardless of what's happening around you and regardless of even your mental state. One of the things that we tend to struggle with when we have severe trauma is just having the energy to do anything. And of course, if you literally almost need to sleep for 12 hours straight, because your nervous system is so injured, you need rest in order to heal. But you're taking care of kids, and also how can you make enough money to eat and have a place to sleep if you're sleeping for 12 hours a day? I mean, it's really a huge catch-22 that you get put in when somebody has treated you this way, which of course is why they do it. So they can stand back and watch you, fall and flame out and, develop addictions and mental health issues you can't overcome. And, they'd really love it if you just killed yourself, frankly. But I'm not going out like that. I don't like these people like that. They don't get to do that. Nope. I am an uncooperative woman, and I'm damn proud of it. You are not going to take me out like that. Screw you. Okay. So that's the first thing. Be defiant. Fuck those people. You're better than them. Go do what you do, because what you do will be so much better than what they do. Okay. Yes, all this crap happens. People do horrible things. You wind up in horrible situations, but you don't just die, right? It would be easier in some ways if you were like, okay, I'm done, and just sat down and turned off a switch or something. I don't know, but it doesn't work like that. You're going to be alive. So that's the first thing. Accept it. You're going to be alive, which means you're going to have many days ahead. Which means if you don't want those many days ahead to be filled with poverty and misery, you're going to have to find a way forward. So, first of all. Second of all, believe in yourself. You made it this far. You would still never treat someone the way that you were treated. So you have what it takes. And there are people who have overcome, and there are people who have survived. There are people who are able to look at these catastrophic events as before and after events. There was a before that happened, and there was an after that happened, and the after can actually be really good. You know, you always have the loss of what happened, and you're always going to be dealing with, you know, these trauma symptoms to some extent. Because, you know, it's a nervous system injury. It's like any other injury, you know. It's your bum knee starts to ache when it rains, right? Your PTSD is going to act up when somebody is being shitty to you. How it works. So here's just a little bit of advice that I have for how I worked my way out of this. First of all, I didn't abandon what I had already been doing. I think often there's this like, oh my gosh, I have to start completely over. No, everything you have done up until this point still belongs to you. It still has value. It may need to be reworked into a different package. But you will, I promise you, if you move forward in your strengths, people will help you much more than if you are like only presenting in your weakness. One of the things I honestly didn't realize until I got some feedback a few times that clued me in was that when I was presenting with my weakness, with like, look at what's happened to me, look at how it's impacting me, look at the damage that it's caused. Even when I was pointing to like, look at the things that I've done that have value and worth in the past, you know, I've lost, like that was harmed or whatever. People did not recognize my value and my strength in that. And that's a problem with the way people are looking at others in distress. But you can't do anything about that except for do better yourself when you encounter people in that state. But if you really take hold of what your strengths are, what you've already accomplished, and you continue building on that, so you're putting your strengths forward, you will find that people can see you much more easily and recognize like, oh, this is somebody who I want to, you know, invest into, pour into, believe in, find help for, give opportunities for. So that's the first thing. Don't abandon what you've already done. Figure out ways to continue building on it. The second thing is you're going to be expending a lot of energy simply surviving. And this could be, you know, finding a place to sleep. I've done that. A little stressful. It could be finding food. It could be finding food for children. It could be dealing with crabby children. You're going to be dealing with a lot of survival stress that is going to use a huge amount of your energy. Plus, you are working with a nervous system that has been that's been injured. And so that is going to still be impacting you, and it does require care. So that combination makes it very difficult to be productive in the manner in which you were able to be productive in the past. That doesn't mean you're never going to be able to be productive like that again, although you may choose to scale back for your own good once you get through this all. But right then, you are going to be working with limited energy, which makes it difficult to move towards your goals and to continue building on whatever it is that you've been doing up until now. So what I would do, you know, this is obviously super anxiety inducing because like you are expending all your energy to exist and you know you're not making movement, and life will just pass you by if you don't make some sort of progress. And, you know, it's very anxiety inducing. So what I did was I decided that I would take at least one small step. I had a small handful of goals, and I would take at least one small step towards those goals every single day. And when I say small, there were days that my small step was pulling up a website so the tab would be open when I was ready to look at it. Like, we are talking small. Okay. But one of the things I wish I had been taught when I was growing up, because it would have made my life so much easier just in terms of anxiety and the amount of pressure I put on myself, is that if you are very, very consistently engaging in small steps, it really does add up. And then as you start to get those bursts of energy, you can, where you can do more than just one small step, you have like things that you're working on, that you are progressing on, and you will have something that like fits the amount of energy that you have to use. You will have a task that moves you towards your goal that uses that amount of energy, right? If you go on my Facebook page, the header says, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." And that's what we're doing. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's hard to make that shift because often we enter into these situations in an emergency mode. So we're like sprinting, but you can't, at some point you have to realize this situation is not resolving itself quickly, which means if I continue sprinting, I am not going to make it. I'm going to crash. So you have to make that shift away from like, it's an emergency, I have to do everything I can to fix it, to this is life and I have to figure out how to move forward in this space and situation I am in until I can get through to the other side. So that's really important. You really do need to prioritize things that impact your mental health and your energy levels. And one of the biggest strains that people deal with, I think, is that they don't have time or space to process their emotions. In totally understandable, even just being around someone who's processing the kinds of emotions that come with being treated like this, it can be really disturbing to the people around us. But it has to be done, because if you don't, then your nervous system is going to be operating in such a way that the smallest thing will push you over capacity. It'll send you into overwhelm. You'll be so irritable. You will be treating people around you in ways that you don't want, or you'll have to withdraw entirely so that you aren't treating them badly. So it's really important that you make time and space to process those emotions. And I hate to say it, but it's going to take a lot more time and space than is convenient or comfortable for you or anyone else. But if you leave yourself the time and space to do that, you process these emotions more in real time, then you're not carrying them forward. Because the thing with pain, once you've really processed through something, it's a memory, And you can enter back into it, but it's not living where it's just popping up. I mean, when this first happened, things that would trigger me into having to into a trauma state were onion peels, the sound of a washer and dryer being used, school buses, phones. I'm surprised it wasn't air. Everything was a certain weather, anything, So you can't function like that, obviously. You have to deal with these emotions. And particularly when you've experienced such an extreme trauma, which, again, I'm really addressing everyone who this feels like this is helpful to them, but particularly Afghan rights activists, the people that I've been working with, it has to be done. You don't have a choice. You will destroy your life. You will destroy your life. Even if you get your goals of I need to get asylum in a safe country and continue my education and all of that, it won't matter if you don't take the time to process this stuff, because you will be destructive and you will be hurting yourself and everyone around you. And it will not be what you want. No, it will not. So yeah, you do. You have to find the time. I was actually really blessed. I spent some time in a shelter, and it happened to be right by some woods that nobody else went in. I don't know. I guess some people think woods are scary. I love woods. I must have come from woodland people because it just makes me feel peaceful and happy. And so I would go there and I would scream at God if I needed to. Because that's the thing. If you have people who are safe to process this stuff with, that's amazing. You have a gift. If you don't, God is there. You can do it with him. He'll show up. I promise. Promise. Even if there was a point where, honest to goodness, every time I would go to pray, and the only thing that would come out is, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. It's true. And still, God was there. He was like, oh, good for you. Just like you would with a child who's upset and hurt and says, I hate you. You're like, okay. I always tell people, I'm a mom. I'm used to having people mad at me. Well, guess what, God's God. He can deal with your stuff. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell, my advice for people who are facing this terrible and impossible situation that they're in. And I hope that you will continue, if you have been past this, if you're not already connected to me, please do connect with me. My website is theupsidedownworld.com. And you can find links to all of my socials there and connect with me there. If you go to my YouTube page, I have a lot of videos, most of them much shorter than this, where I share a lot of things. There's one on surviving the apocalypse that has some tips that might be useful. There's a lot of stuff there that you might find helpful because it's a hard journey. And honestly, it was the words of other people who had gone before me and who had shared their stories. There were many times that that was kind of like something that I hung on to get through a tough time, a tough space. Like there was a point where I slept in my car, and just remembering the story of Sylvester Stallone, and he had been homeless before he sold Rocky and became this superstar, but it just like was this reminder, like you still have dignity even in this situation. Like just because you're going through something doesn't mean that defines who you are, and many, many, many people who have contributed positively to the world, who people respect and even admire, have gone through things such as this. And so that's your goal, is to be like those people, right? That's who you are. And don't let your circumstances confuse you or mislead you into thinking that is not true. It is. You are because you said you are. You wouldn't say you are if it wasn't in you, right? You wouldn't be on this path if it wasn't in you. And, it's really, 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 really shitty when things like this happen, when you're sent into exile and you're no longer welcomed in your homeland. And you were mistreated grievously along the way for things as simple as asking to be treated like a human being, like anyone else. How dare you? How dare you? But right from the beginning, when this all happened, I kind of I knew I was going to have the fight to try and get back to my kids, but I kind of instinctively knew, especially as things started going really sideways, and it all happened so quickly. I was like, I didn't think I was going to be successful. Like I knew I needed to have the fight, but I didn't actually think I was going to win. And ultimately, my goal was that when my children were ready to return, that they would find me safe and sound and secure in my own little kingdom, my own little world that I have built for myself, and that they could also be safe and secure in. And that's like kind of where I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I can tell you that the very worst doesn't have to be the end, because we're human beings. We're smart. We're creative. We're ingenious. Even if you have to strip yourself right all the way down to all I can worry about right now is how I'm going to get to tomorrow. I'm going to find food today. Where am I going to sleep? Humans live like that for millennia. We were built for that shit. That's easy. If that's like really where you're at, and that was where I was at for a minute, do I have something to eat? Do I have some place to rest? Do I have my medicine? Do I have something to drink? Am I able to stay safe one day to the next? Keep doing that. We were made for this. We can do this. I believe in you. I really do. I wouldn't bother talking to you if I didn't believe in you. And you wouldn't be listening to me right now if you weren't somebody who is worth believing in. Because you wouldn't be interested in what I have to say. All right? So that is my advice. Please pass it on to anyone who you think it would be beneficial to. If you are interested in learning more about Food for Thought Afghanistan, you can check us out. Our website is foodforthought.care. While you are there, please sign up for our newsletter that is being specifically written for Afghan activists. That will be launching in March. We are also looking for people to help out with that. So if that's something that you're interested in, particularly we can use translation services. You can go to the website and go to the contact page and fill out the form there, and we will get right back to you. We're pretty excited about that. And that's the other thing, is that when you cannot move forward, when you don't know what else to do, go help other people. That's what I did. I kept serving homeless people. I would show up every night and I would wash dirty dishes and I would cook food and I would hug people who hadn't bathed, and I would sing songs of praise to God in the middle of all of that crap, because you know what? Nobody could stop me. Nobody has to stop you either. Okay? Love you all. I will talk to you again soon. Bye.